Hey guys, just wanted to take a look here at some of these correlations between the S&P 500 and the Russell 2000, which the Russell 2000 is basically low cap index for TradFi, for equities, for stocks. And let's take a look here at the correlation that they've historically had with Bitcoin and see exactly what's going on right now with the Russell 2000 and the S&P 500. And what I think we're probably going to see with Bitcoin here really soon. Okay, so if we go all the way back to 2018, even back further, you can see that Bitcoin here had a big run up. These things were moving up. They peaked at around the same time. Um, Equities had a double top. Bitcoin didn't. Bitcoin went down, but then we can see here everything fell off at the same time and bottomed here around the same time. Where are we here? Right there. Okay. And then everything started moving up, moving up. And then here we have COVID. COVID hit everything. They all had a similar V shaped recovery. And then everything started moving up. Like the correlation here is obvious, right? If you don't see it, then I don't know what to tell you. Okay. So we had a double top in Bitcoin where equities just had a slow grind, kind of a double top here with with the Russell, slightly higher top. Russell's the purple, right? So we you can see it's similar, but it's emphasized more here in Bitcoin. You have the double top and a little bit of a bottom. Here we have a double top, a little bit of a bottom. Same W here in in the Russell and Bitcoin, and then we had a double top slightly higher. Um, S&P 500 was more of a grind all the way up, and then they basically rolled over around the same time. You can see that this little pump is everywhere. This pump everywhere across markets. Okay, and then we move over to the bottom. Let me expand this a little bit to zoom in so we can see how it all played out. And then I'll just rearrange these a little bit. Give me a moment. I'm just going to clear this so that's nice and clean. And we can start over again. Okay, so people who have seen my videos, I've talked about this several times, but I'll do it one more time for emphasis. So we can see here that the Russell 2000 had a double bottom. We can see the S&P 500 had a double bottom. Okay. The S&P 500 went on to make higher highs and higher lows all the way up. The Russell 2000 had a higher high, had a higher high here from this, right? Started doing that, and then it swept the low. Okay, so that's not exactly the same, but we can see that Bitcoin would have done something similar here, had this double bottom, and then the low was swept because of an industry specific black swan FTX collapse. That didn't happen. That didn't affect other markets outside of crypto. So if that wouldn't have happened, my argument is that we would have seen Bitcoin would have seen a very similar path as the S&P 500 where we saw higher highs and higher lows starting there. Okay? That's my argument is we would have seen something like that. The correlation is obvious. All right, so we keep going. We can see higher highs and higher lows all the way up. And then around the same time, in the beginning of last year, we had the whole tariff scare, Liberation Day, and the same thing happened. S&P fell off, Bitcoin fell off, the Russell also fell off. Okay, now here's where Bitcoin deviated a little bit. Another industry specific black swan, October 10th. October 10th, Bitcoin fell off. We had that. I don't even know exactly what happened. There's different ideas out there. Um, some shenanigans with finance, whatever the root cause was. Um, Bitcoin fell and the others did. Another industry specific black swan. And then we had January roll around and the nomination for the next Fed chair was announced, and markets saw that as hawkish because they think the initial reaction was Kevin Warsh is hawkish. I don't agree with that take. I think he's very bullish for low rates, but that was the scare. Markets sold off, and that affected all markets, all equities, and Bitcoin. So this drop was due to markets. This drop was due to the debacle that happened in October. Everybody started selling, whales started selling. There were liquidations everywhere. Whatever triggered that, it seems like there was some backdoor shenanigans. Um, anyways, so look at what has happened here for the Russell and for the S&P 500. They both had V-shaped recoveries where they've recovered and made all new time highs from the January drop. Okay. So this is what I expect over the next few weeks. I expect Bitcoin to follow them. But here's the caveat, not to new all-time highs necessarily, but to the January drop. I think that's reasonable to based on how everything has been correlated so far. So if the Russell 2000 had the same drop in January and then recovered and made a new all-time high, S&P 500, same thing, new all-time high. It makes sense to reason that Bitcoin will do the same thing and make not a new time all high, an all-time new high because this was industry specific, but it should reclaim about 94,000 if I'm right on this theory. Okay. And then, well, let's just see how things go. I'm curious to see if if um, if equities continue to make higher highs, then I see Bitcoin also following them to make new all-time highs and eventually reclaim 126,000. That's what I'm watching. That's what I'm watching right now. These have reclaimed often, not always, but often equities will go first and Bitcoin will follow. Um, it's not always the case, but there are definitely examples um, here, obviously, because Bitcoin had this. And if we go back, you can see here the S&P 500 went first, and then eventually Bitcoin followed. Um, the Russell 2000, I mean, and the S&P 500 down here also went first. Bitcoin consolidated a little bit longer and then followed it up. And then even though Russell and S&P 500 had a little bit more of a slower, higher high, higher low, Bitcoin took off. Okay, so that's what I'm watching right over here. These went first, of course. We discussed that because of the FTX collapse. So that's what I have my eye out for. I think it makes sense looking at all the other indicators that we've been looking at and all the other indicators that Menno also has been sharing with you guys. It looks to me that we have a bottom forming here. We have a nice W formation, similar to what we had here for the FTX collapse, similar to what we see over here for this one before the FTX collapse, um, and similar to what we have over here, right? In this bear market, we didn't have the second one sweep the lows. This was the low, and then we started forming a range, and then we broke out of it quite parabolically, actually. So this is what I'm watching for. I I think it is. I think there's a strong case to be made that this is what happens. Um, what do you guys think? All right, I'm going to leave this video there for now. Give you a scenario, the reasons why I think that this could play out this way. Um, the obvious correlation, the moves that the Russell and S&P 500 have already made, and Bitcoin is yet to do it, yet to reclaim its January level. So let's see. All right, everyone. Chat soon.